The Cathar had seen countless worlds, each more advanced and more prosperous than the last. Their empire spanned across hundreds of star systems, with each conquered planet adding to their growing legacy. They were warriors and conquerors, bred for dominance, and their technology was unmatched in the galaxy. And yet, as their fleet descended upon Earth's atmosphere, they were certain of one thing: this world would be just another easy conquest. Commander Tarak, leader of the Cathar Expeditionary Force, stood at the bridge of his flagship, the Vornak, as the blue and green planet below slowly grew larger. His sharp eyes scanned the tactical data before him, analyzing Earth's electromagnetic fields, its primitive cities, and the scattered signals from the various human settlements. He smirked as he considered the human race. No defenses, no cohesion, no threat. The Cathar had been tracking Earth for decades, gathering all the intel they could from long-range scans. They knew Earth's technological level was low compared to most of the galaxy's civilized planets. The human race was fractured, continents at war, nations divided, and no unifying force capable of putting up any meaningful resistance. It was the perfect candidate for their next expansion. Initiate planetary communication, Tarak ordered. His voice was cold, devoid of empathy. His species had no need for diplomacy. It was simple: invade, conquer, and enslave. His second-in-command, Lor, a tall and angular Cathar officer, activated the comms, sending out a signal to Earth's highest leaders. The message was short and to the point. You have 2 Earth days to surrender. Fail to comply, and your world will be destroyed. The Cathar fleet descended upon Earth, deploying dropships to hover over major cities. Their landing crafts were massive, casting long shadows across the landscape as they slowly hovered over places like New York, Beijing, and Moscow. From above, the humans looked like ants, their feeble militaries powerless against the alien juggernaut now looming overhead. On the ground, chaos erupted. Governments and military forces, unprepared for an alien invasion of this scale, scrambled to react. There was no unity, no coherent defense strategy. Some nations launched missiles that were quickly intercepted. Others attempted to deploy fighter jets, but they were swatted out of the sky before they could even reach the Cathar ships. The world was plunged into confusion, fear, and panic. But in the midst of this global chaos, one small group of individuals began to move in the shadows. Adam Carter, a former Navy SEAL turned intelligence operative, was one of the first to understand what was happening. He had been tracking reports of strange sightings, unusual electromagnetic anomalies, and alien signals for years, well before the Cathar had even arrived. While the rest of the world was paralyzed by fear, Adam knew that Earth's true strength lay not in its military, but in its hidden resilience. He tapped into a secure comm system, his face grim. "It's time," he said to his team. "Prepare for the worst." As Earth's skies darkened with the presence of the Cathar fleet, the invading force maintained a confident composure. Commander Tarak, standing tall and regal on the command deck of the Vornak, surveyed the scene unfolding on Earth below. His mind was already calculating the next phase of the invasion. The Cathar had conquered more sophisticated planets than this, and they had done so with ease. Earth, with its primitive cities and scattered military, would be no different. "Continue scanning," Tarak ordered, his voice cold and authoritative. "I want to know everything about their weapons, their communications. But remember, there is no need for subtlety. We've already confirmed they are incapable of defending themselves." Lor, ever the loyal second-in-command, nodded and began relaying the orders to the ship's intelligence officers. "We've identified all major urban centers, Commander," Lor reported, his long fingers flying over his console. "No significant signs of resistance. Their communications are in disarray. It's clear their leaders are scrambling. We should begin extraction of resources immediately." Tarak nodded, his features twisted in satisfaction. "Proceed with the plan. This planet will be ours before the sun sets tomorrow." The Cathar made their move swiftly, launching troops from their ships into Earth's largest cities. Thousands of armored soldiers descended like a storm, their forms glinting with energy shields and high-tech weaponry. They landed in the heart of New York, Paris, Tokyo, major cities that should have been prepared for any threat. The Cathar forces overwhelmed each city within hours, cutting through human defenses with ease. Resistance was met with swift destruction. As the Cathar moved across the globe, humans in every corner of the planet were thrown into disarray. World leaders scrambled to organize their defense forces, but the Cathar had already neutralized most military assets. Earth's weapons, though powerful in their own right, were outdated compared to the Cathar's technology. The invaders effortlessly disabled Earth's air forces, downing jets before they could even launch counterattacks, and neutralized ground forces with overwhelming firepower. The Cathar were not concerned. Their weapon systems were capable of disintegrating entire military units in seconds. Their soldiers, genetically engineered for combat, were stronger, faster, and far more intelligent than the humans they faced. As far as Tyranny was concerned, the human race was merely a nuisance. But as the Cathar moved through the planet, something strange began to stir beneath the surface. Tyranny had expected a world on its knees, but there were small pockets of resistance, disjointed, uncoordinated, yet surprisingly effective. The humans fought back. They were not organized, not in the traditional sense, but there was something unsettling about them. They did not panic. They did not crumble. Tyranny frowned. His scanners had shown no sign of advanced technology, no superweapons, no threats that could challenge the Cathar's power. And yet, despite this, there was a resistance. A small, stubborn human force was fighting back in a way that defied logic. Tyranny's confidence began to fray, but he quickly dismissed it. It's a fluke, he told himself. A few isolated incidents. There's no need to waste time with these insects, he muttered. Full-scale suppression, now. Meanwhile, Adam Carter, observing the invasion from the shadows, was already preparing for the next phase. What the Cathar didn't know was that their overconfidence would soon be their greatest mistake. The first signs of resistance caught the Cathar by surprise. It wasn't much, just a small, poorly coordinated strike on one of their scout ships hovering above the Rockies, but it was enough to make Commander Tyranny pause. His scanners had detected a small, encrypted transmission just before the attack, but it was a blip on the radar, easily dismissed. That was, until his ship shields flickered, and an explosion rocked the Cathar vessel. Adam Carter had been preparing for this moment for weeks, if not months. The TRN had been gathering information on the Cathar's tactics, their technology, and their weaknesses. They knew their own military couldn't stand against an invading force of this scale. But the TRN had something the Cathar didn't: a deep understanding of alien technology and the ability to think outside the box. The mission to take down the Cathar scout ship was simple in theory but dangerous in practice. Adam's team, operating in total secrecy, had infiltrated a high-security military base in Nevada, where they'd secretly reverse-engineered Cathar tech they'd captured in earlier skirmishes. The TRN had learned how to disable Cathar shields temporarily, using a frequency disruption device they had covertly deployed on the perimeter of the Cathar fleet. The team had carefully timed their attack. As the Cathar ship above the Rockies lowered its shields to conduct a full system scan, they activated the device from a hidden position in the mountains. The Cathar ship's defenses flickered for a crucial moment, just long enough for a barrage of surface-to-air missiles to strike with pinpoint accuracy, taking out the ship's engines. The explosion was magnificent, sending debris cascading through the sky like fireworks. The Cathar had lost a scout ship, but worse than that, they had been embarrassed. The first hint of vulnerability, no matter how small, was enough to start a chain reaction. Tyranny's once imposing confidence began to waver. What is this? Tyranny roared, watching the live feeds from the wreckage. A primitive missile. How is this possible? They should not be able to penetrate our shields. Lore, his second-in-command, stepped forward, his face tense. "Commander, it's not just one attack. We're receiving reports from multiple sectors. There's something happening across Earth. Humans are using unconventional tactics, disruptions in communication, strange electromagnetic pulses, guerrilla attacks in the most unexpected places." Tarak's mind raced. "Impossible," he muttered. "They can't even communicate properly. These attacks must be random." But Adam Carter knew better. As the Cathar began to search for the source of the disruption, he and his team had already moved deeper into their hidden network. He wasn't surprised that the Cathar dismissed the initial strike as a fluke. But what they didn't know was that Earth's true strength lay not in brute force, but in the ability to adapt, to use ingenuity to outthink an enemy too arrogant to see the threat until it was too late. Adam tapped a communicator and spoke into the secure channel, his voice steady. "We've just made the first move. Now we wait." The Cathar might have believed Earth to be defenseless, but Adam knew the truth. Humanity's real power lay in its ability to surprise. And the Cathar had no idea what was coming next. As the Cathar scrambled to regain control of their operations, they grew more frustrated by the increasing frequency of mysterious attacks and disruptions. Cities were still falling under their iron grip, but scattered pockets of resistance, seemingly random, kept emerging from unexpected places. The Cathar had expected Earth to crumble under their might, but the humans refused to break. Worse, these sporadic attacks were not only unsettling, but they were beginning to cost the Cathar resources, time, and lives. In response, Tarak ordered his forces to tighten their grip. Every remaining military asset was mobilized. Every city that had resisted was heavily bombarded. "There will be no more games," Tarak growled from his command chair aboard the Vornak. "No more surprises." But while the Cathar were focused on suppressing what they saw as futile human resistance, something far more significant was happening behind the scenes. In a small hidden laboratory deep underground in the Nevada desert, Adam Carter and his team were on the verge of a discovery that would change everything. Dr. Fiona Hayes, the team's top scientist, had spent countless sleepless nights scouring ancient human records, cross-referencing alien artifacts they had recovered over the years, and trying to make sense of the strange technologies they had been piecing together. It had started as just a theory, something no one wanted to believe. Earth was not as defenseless as the Cathar thought. Humanity had been altered, subtly, long before the Cathar had arrived. And that alteration, the key to Earth's resilience, was buried deep in human history. "I think I found it," Fiona said one evening, her voice trembling slightly as she held up an ancient alien-looking device that had been hidden away in a secure vault for centuries. The device was smooth and spherical, humming softly with energy, a perfect fit in her palm. Adam, standing nearby, turned toward her. "What is it?" he asked. Fiona looked up at him, her eyes wide. "I don't know exactly, but it's linked to something. Something I've been tracing in ancient records. I think this is a device from the first contact period, back when the ancients were visited by alien species, long before the Cathar ever knew of Earth." Adam took a cautious step forward. "And how does it work?" Fiona hesitated. "I believe it's linked to human genetics, our DNA. This device, it amplifies a connection we've had for centuries. The ability to resonate with alien technology, to use it. It was always there, but we've lost track of it. Now, with this, we can activate it." Adam's heart raced. He could feel it. The sudden sense of urgency had spurred him to action. "You're saying Earth isn't just using their tech. We're connected to it." Fiona nodded slowly. "We were never as primitive as they thought. We were just waiting for the right moment to unlock it." As Fiona activated the device, a soft glow pulsed from the orb, spreading out across the room. Adam watched as the walls seemed to hum with energy, a vibration not unlike the subtle resonance of a tuning fork. The device's power was affecting the very environment around them, activating dormant technologies in ways they had never expected. Fiona's fingers flew over the control panel. This is the beginning. It's not just about using alien technology anymore. It's about Asterisk becoming Asterisked. We have the tools now. Adam smiled grimly, the realization setting in. Then let's show them who's really in control. As Earth's hidden power began to awaken, the Cathar, still blind to humanity's true capabilities, would soon learn the hard way that Earth's resistance was not born from desperation, but from a power older than they could imagine. The Cathar were not accustomed to uncertainty. They had crushed civilizations far more advanced than Earth, civilizations that had once thought themselves invincible. So when their initial assault on Earth's cities began to encounter more resistance than they had anticipated, Commander Tarak's calm demeanor began to crack. The reports from his ground commanders were increasingly concerning. Small, disjointed bands of humans were mounting a more organized fight, and Cathar troops were being harassed and even wiped out in the field. "Report," Tarak demanded, his voice like a whip as he stood over Lore at the tactical console. Lore hesitated, eyes scanning the data. "We're receiving reports of unusual behavior among the humans. It's as if they're adapting to our tactics. In some regions, they're using guerrilla warfare, hiding in forests, mountains, even the urban ruins. They're harder to track than anticipated." Tarak's face twisted in frustration. Guerrilla tactics. A primitive strategy. The humans cannot sustain this. Eventually, they will break. He slammed his fist against the control panel, sending a series of sparks from the console. "Continue the occupation. We will show them what true power looks like." But deep down, Tarak felt a gnawing unease. Despite his words, something about this Earth was different. These humans were resilient. Too resilient. On the ground, Adam Carter and the TRN were preparing to escalate their counterattack. The artifact they had uncovered in Nevada, the ancient device that had unlocked humanity's latent connection to alien technology, was the game changer they had been waiting for. Now, Adam and his team had begun to train select groups of soldiers and civilians, preparing them to use the newfound power that resonated through their bodies. "This isn't just about weapons anymore," Adam explained to his team one night as they gathered in the deep recesses of an underground TRN facility. "The Cathar underestimate us because they think we're just another war-torn planet. But what they don't understand is that we've been preparing for this moment for centuries. Humanity has always had the potential for more, and now we're finally starting to tap into it." He looked around at the diverse group of soldiers, engineers, and scientists, people from every corner of the world who had come together under the TRN banner. "We can do this. The power is already in us. We just need to learn how to control it." Fiona Hayes, who had become the team's guiding force in understanding the alien technology, was overseeing the training. She watched as human volunteers, ordinary civilians, grasped the energy devices with trembling hands. At first, the results were minimal, small bursts of energy that crackled in the air, an occasional spark of blue light. But as the training continued, the humans grew more attuned to the energy flowing through them. "We've only begun to scratch the surface," Fiona said, her voice steady but full of awe. "The more we train, the more control we'll have. The resonance is real. It's alive." The first successful demonstration came when a group of TRN soldiers, equipped with the resonant technology, faced off against a Cathar patrol. Using only their bare hands and the energy that hummed through their veins, they neutralized the Cathar's weapons, sending shockwaves through their forces. It was small, but it was enough. Back on the Cathar flagship, Tarak had received the latest reports from the front lines. His soldiers were no longer advancing with the same speed and efficiency. They were facing unexpected resistance, as if the very planet itself was fighting back. His orders had been clear: capture Earth's cities and resources, crush any resistance. Yet now, it felt as though the humans were simply waiting for something. As he turned to Lore, Tarak's face darkened. "What are they waiting for?" he muttered. What haven't we seen yet? Lore glanced at the data streams, his brow furrowed. They're adapting, using our tech against us, learning faster than we can respond. And we've just lost another ship, this time, without warning. Trek's fists clenched. He refused to acknowledge the creeping suspicion that gnawed at the edges of his mind. No, he thought, the humans cannot be this strong. But deep down, he knew the truth. They were more dangerous than he had ever realized. And now, they were beginning to turn the tide. In the shadows of Earth's fractured cities, Adam Carter knew one thing with certainty. The war was about to change. The Cathar might have the advantage of technology, but humanity was gaining something far more valuable, resilience. And as the humans began to understand the power that flowed through them, the Cathar would learn, too late, that Earth was not the defenseless planet they had thought it to be. Trek stood before the holographic display, his eyes locked on the live footage of Earth's cities. His gaze was cold, but beneath the surface, a storm was brewing. The reports coming in from the front lines were a mixed bag. Some cities had been brought to their knees, but in others, the Cathar forces were facing unprecedented resistance. Worse, their technological advantage was no longer as overwhelming as it had once been. Something had changed on Earth, and it wasn't just the humans' crude guerrilla tactics. Lore, his ever-faithful second-in-command, glanced at the tactical map, his voice full of concern. "Commander, we've lost contact with the Eastern Sector's command ship. They reported sudden electrical disturbances. Then silence. It's the 5th ship we've lost in the last 48 hours. Tarak clenched his jaw. It's impossible. The humans shouldn't even be able to access our communication frequencies. How could they disable our ships without warning? Lore was silent for a moment. We're also getting reports of Cathar troops being incapacitated. Not killed, but paralyzed. There's no sign of conventional weaponry, just these strange pulses of energy. Tarak felt his frustration boil over. He had underestimated Earth, but now he could feel his overconfidence slipping away. They must be using our own technology against us. The humans have somehow managed to manipulate our systems. I want every fleet on full alert. We need to find out how they're doing this. Now. But Adam Carter and his team weren't just reacting to the Cathar. They were planning the next phase of the war. The TRN had learned how to use the resonance technology, but they were also unlocking the deeper, more dangerous aspect of it. Fiona Hayes and Dr. Rafael Ortiz, another expert on the ancient technology, had discovered that the energy the humans were tapping into wasn't just a defense mechanism. It was an ancient form of collective consciousness, a psychic resonance that linked humanity on a deeper level. And now that it was activated, humans could not only manipulate alien technology, but communicate with each other in ways that were impossible before. "Adam, this is it," Fiona said, her voice shaking with excitement. "We're tapping into something beyond our understanding. If we focus the energy, we could synchronize our forces across the entire planet. Imagine a network of minds linked together, all acting as one. It's like the humans have always been connected to the Earth itself." Adam paced, deep in thought. The implications were staggering. If they could amplify this connection, humans would be able to form an intricate, planet-wide resistance, able to predict Cathar movements, coordinate strikes, and even disrupt their technology from within. It was the perfect countermeasure. "The Cathar think we're just a scattered, fractured species," Adam said, a grin tugging at his lips. "But when we act as one, they won't stand a chance." Fiona's eyes gleamed. "We need to get this to the people, everywhere. A coordinated global attack, a force they can't ignore. If we synchronize our efforts, if we can amplify the resonance, we'll hit them where it hurts the most. Their own ships, their own systems." Adam nodded. "Then it's time. We make the Cathar feel the weight of every single human on this planet." The Cathar had not expected this kind of fight. As their forces dug in deeper, confident that the humans were mere distractions, Adam and his team set their plan in motion. Across the world, pockets of human resistance began to move in unison. The Cathar's communications were flooded with interference, their ships disabled by pulses of psychic energy. The humans were no longer fighting as individuals. They were one, a unified force pushing back against an empire that had fought itself invincible. And as the Cathar scrambled to reassert control, they began to understand one undeniable truth. Earth was no longer defenseless. The Cathar had underestimated Earth from the beginning, but now they were facing the full consequence of their arrogance. The planetary resistance, once scattered and fragmented, had become a unified force, coordinated, relentless, and growing stronger by the hour. From the moment humanity unlocked the ancient resonance technology, the battlefield had shifted. It was no longer a war of advanced weapons versus primitive defenses. It was a war of wills, and Earth was proving it was capable of far more than the Cathar had bargained for. Commander Tarak stood on the bridge of the Vornak, staring at the swirling chaos of data unfolding before him. His fleet was in disarray. Ships were falling from the sky, disabled by electromagnetic pulses that rendered their systems useless. Thar soldiers, strong, fast, and ruthless, were being overwhelmed by coordinated human strikes, often without even understanding what hit them. Resistance groups across the planet had synchronized their attacks, as if every human mind on Earth had suddenly become a part of a larger organism. "Lore, report." Tarak barked, his voice sharp as a blade. Lore's face was grim. "We've lost control of half the fleet. The remaining ships are in disarray, scattered, and the planet's surface is riddled with human insurgents, using our own technology against us. The interference is making it impossible to maintain a clear command structure. We can't track their movements with accuracy." Tarak's frustration boiled over. He slammed his fist against the console. "This cannot be happening. We are the Cathar. We are the galaxy's conquerors. How can we be losing to this insignificant planet?" But as the hours passed, Tarak had no answers, only worsening reports. His fleet, once powerful and unchallenged, was faltering under the pressure. Thar soldiers were beginning to desert, unable to cope with the mysterious, unseen forces that seemed to turn every advantage against them. Ships that had been vital to their command structure were being hijacked by humans, who somehow knew the right frequencies to bypass their security systems. Some reports even suggested that the humans had begun to hijack their communication channels, broadcasting disorienting messages across the fleet. Tarak knew one thing with certainty: the situation was spiraling out of control. The human resistance was not just surviving, it was thriving. Meanwhile, Adam Carter's team was preparing for the final strike. With the Cathar in disarray, they had learned to amplify the psychic resonance to a degree that would have once been thought impossible. Fiona, now working alongside Dr. Ortiz, had devised a plan to overload the Cathar's central control system, the very heart of their operations on Earth. It would take everything the humans had, but if they succeeded, the Cathar would be cut off from the planet entirely. "Adam, this is it," Fiona said, her voice steady, but tinged with the weight of what was about to unfold. "If we can synchronize the resonance across the globe, we can disrupt the Cathar command structure completely. The fleet will lose its cohesion, and the soldiers on the ground will be disoriented." Adam nodded, his face resolute. "Then we finish this. All over Earth, the pulse of human will begin to build. From the smallest resistance cell to the largest cities, humanity was united, not just in battle, but in purpose. Earth was no longer the defenseless world the Cathar had expected. It was a world with a hidden strength, a collective consciousness that could turn the tide of war. And as the final push began, Commander Tarak's worst fears were realized. The Cathar had been outsmarted. Earth's resistance was no longer fighting a losing battle. It was winning. The skies above Earth were streaked with fire. Far ships, once symbols of an unstoppable empire, were now falling from the heavens in flaming wreckage, plummeting into the oceans and deserts below. The once proud fleet had been shattered, its control lost in a cascade of chaos. The Cathar soldiers, stranded without communication, were now scattered, disoriented, and unable to mount a coherent defense. Earth had not only survived the invasion, it was on the verge of victory. Adam Carter stood atop a jagged cliff, overlooking the wreckage of a Cathar command ship that had crashed into the heart of the Nevada desert. The device Fiona had helped them activate had worked. The resonance pulse had rippled across the planet, an electromagnetic shockwave that had short-circuited the Cathar's communications, disrupted their command structures, and severed their hold on Earth. It was the final blow, the culmination of weeks of resistance, ingenuity, and unity. "It's over," Adam said softly, a sense of disbelief in his voice. It had seemed impossible just a few months ago. Earth, a planet torn by conflict, poverty, and division, was now standing tall, united against an alien force that had thought it was destined to dominate the galaxy. Fiona Hayes appeared at his side, her eyes tired but triumphant. "Not quite yet. We've crippled them, but we still need to ensure they can't regroup. We have to finish what we started." Adam nodded. He had seen firsthand what humanity was capable of when it was forced to fight for its survival. But this wasn't just about survival anymore. The humans had discovered their own strength, not through superior technology or firepower, but through a collective willpower, a resilience that had been dormant for millennia, waiting for the right moment to awaken. As Adam turned back toward the command center, a group of TRN soldiers approached, led by Captain Emma Hayes, Fiona's sister. She saluted him sharply. "Commander Carter, the final sweep is in progress. The Cathar are surrendering or retreating in disarray. We've secured all major cities." Adam looked out at the horizon, his heart swelling with pride. "It's hard to believe they thought they could conquer us. Humanity is more than they realized," Fiona said with a quiet smile. "We've always been capable of more than we gave ourselves credit for." Back at the TRN's Global Command Center, the last of the Cathar forces were being rounded up. The Cathar had come with a false sense of superiority, expecting an easy conquest of a defenseless world. What they had encountered instead was a species capable of adapting and evolving in the face of overwhelming odds. The Cathar were not just beaten. They were broken, humiliated by a planet that had refused to fall. As the last Cathar ships were escorted off Earth, Adam stood at the center of the command room, surrounded by his team. Fiona, Raphael, Emma, they were all there. Together, they had changed the course of history. They had not only fought for Earth's survival, they had rewritten the narrative of what it meant to be human. And as the sun rose over the planet that had once seemed so fragile, Adam Carter made a vow. The Cathar had come to Earth expecting an easy victory. But the next time an alien force looked down on humanity, they would know one thing for sure. Earth was no longer a defenseless planet. Earth was a force to be reckoned with. The future of humanity had just begun.